What's up guys? Today I picked up a Nerf Triad pistol. They've been around for ages, but what's unique about them in my opinion is the velocities you can get out of such a small package. You could carry this around in your pocket all day and surprise an unsuspecting friend, nephew or co-worker or anyone who ever decides to fire a Nerf dart at you without them knowing that you've got it with you. This one, brand new, cost me 22 Australian dollars, but I've bought one before second hand for as low as 2 Australian dollars. This video will include a spring upgrade. The Triad accepts third-party Nerf Retaliator upgrade springs, and what I've got for mine today is a Turf 10kg Retaliator spring. First up though, before upgrading the spring, it's important to upgrade the catch mechanism. The Triad catches differently to most other Nerf blasters in that the trigger itself is the catch. There's no catch spring you can replace for a beefier one, instead I'm going to add resistance to the trigger, which will in turn improve the catching. I'll be using a heavy duty rubber band to press down on the base of the trigger where it catches, but in order for the rubber band to make contact with the trigger, I need to shave away some of the plastic shell. Ideally you'd use a Dremel for this, and I do have one, but I wanted to show you that there's many ways to remove thin plastic. Here I make 2 straight cuts and then break the plastic away by bending it with a pair of pliers. Once there's a cutout groove on either side of the trigger which exceeds the trigger's depth, wrap a strong elastic band around the Triad. If the trigger's a lot harder to pull now, you've done this part right. And with a spring upgrade, it'll bring it back to an easy pull. Now it's time for the spring upgrade. Remove the 4 screws on the bottom of the Triad and remove the plunger. You might need to hold down the trigger to pull the plunger out, but remove the screw on the plunger head and replace the spring with your upgraded one. While you've got the plunger head off, you could rotate the plunger rod to avoid hurting the palm of your hand accidentally from the plunger rod pinching it. To do this, rotate the T-bar so it's parallel with the muzzle, and I'd also recommend removing the piece of plastic on the bottom of the spring rest at the rear, because the T-bar will now hit that. Carefully align the plunger head's 4 grooves with the 4 sides of the plunger rod, and then push down hard while screwing the 2 parts back together as a precaution to not strip the screw threads. Now I'm going to improve the seal of the O-ring by applying a couple of wraps of Teflon tape under it. Using too much can actually hinder velocity. I'd suggest a maximum of 4 wraps. Apply some non-petroleum based lube to both the plunger tube and the O-ring. And now it's time for the most fun / difficult part of this mod. And that is getting the bottom back on while holding back 10 kilos of spring. You need to press very hard to avoid stripping the screw threads, but once you have 2 diagonally opposite screws fastened, the remaining 2 will become a lot easier. Now the moment of truth. Pull the priming handle and see if it catches. If it doesn't, that's okay, mine didn't either. Depending on the spring you got, it may be slightly too long to catch. Simply open up the Triad again, cut off 1 coil from the spring, wire cutters or pliers should get the job done fairly easily, and now it'll catch. This final step is going to be to remove the dart posts. You only need to do this if you want to fire half-length darts out of your Triad. Half-length darts, such as those from Worker, have improved accuracy over standard length Nerf darts that you'd buy off a shelf. Even a Nerf AccuStrike have nothing compared to Worker half-lengths. First, pry the end cover off the Triad. Watch where I put my flathead screwdriver to do this so you remove the correct part. It should pry off fairly easily. Next, remove this screw from the center of the Smart AR assembly. Once the screw is out, you'll need to pry the Smart AR assembly away from the blaster, and this can take some effort to do. For this I pried all the way around the outside before prying harder in one spot, and it came off without any damage. So now what you're seeing is the Smart AR system for the 3 barrels. The long plastic spikes are the dart posts we're going to be removing. The 3 smaller spikes for each barrel, 9 in total, are crucial parts to the function of the blaster. Do not damage these. If you cut these off, the barrel will no longer function, because they need to be pushed in by the dart for that barrel to fire. Take some wire cutters and carefully snip the dart posts off without damaging the smaller Smart AR posts. Now you're ready to reassemble the Triad. I applied some lube around where the plastic seals, but I doubt it really does anything to help or is needed here. You can tell which orientation the Smart AR assembly goes by the cutout on the side. The cutout part goes down towards the plunger. It's where the air enters when you fire it. Don't worry about pushing it all the way in, the screw will pull it up tight. Reattach the end cover and you're done. So now I'll show you the velocity this hits, but first, a little mention of how Smart AR system works. The first barrel in the system, the bottom one, will reach the highest velocity. The other 2 have increased dead space, so they won't hit as hard. Knowing this, in Nerf combat you could decide to keep the top 2 barrels as reserve shots, and just keep reloading the bottom barrel whenever you can. That's how I'd use it. The bottom barrel hits an average velocity of 130 feet per second, while the top 2 hit 106 and 94 respectively. That's not too bad for a pocket-sized blaster. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you plan to mod a Triad of your own, or if you can think of a smaller or equally sized blaster that hits just as hard or harder, please let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.